Could you maybe, like, if you think back to Foresight's foundation, what prompted you guys to start Foresight? What was the kind of culture back then? What was the ambitious visions of nanotech? And like, what has been some exciting kind of like projects that Foresight helped initiate in that space, or like some exciting prizes that we did?
Right. So this started originally at MIT, originally by an undergraduate. The co-founder of Foresight was Eric Drexler, and he was an undergrad at MIT. This was a time when molecular biology was very dynamic. This was like in the mid-70s. Lots of wonderful things being published all the time. And although he was supposed to be studying engineering, he was instead in the library reading Science and Nature and realizing, wait a minute, these are very complex natural molecular machine systems. And being an engineer, he immediately thought, well, why do they have to be made of protein? Why do they have to be in water? Why can't we make extremely complex molecular machine systems in other solvents? Why can't we make them in vacuum? And so, this was this huge vision that he had, right? A very complex sort of vision. And so he explained it to me, and I said, sure, why not? Makes sense. I was a kid. What did I know? I thought, I was in chemistry, though, and so I could look at the chemistry of it and say, sure, yeah, the chemistry's fine. Should work fine. So he was able to find two visionary professors there who were what they call at MIT, if any of you who have been there, institute professors, which means they have very broad powers within the organization of MIT. And he found two who would advocate for him. One was Marvin Minsky, the other was Arthur Kantrowitz. So this vision was powerful enough that we first started a study group at MIT, very standard way to get things started there. You start a study group and did lectures, little mini conferences, and realized, okay, this is going to be really big. This is a big deal. This is a big idea. He was able to get an early publication in 1981 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And all this was very optimistic. It felt really good. So we thought, all right, we have to make this happen. And the place to make this happen, although MIT is a great place, the place to make this happen is Silicon Valley. So came out here, founded Foresight. At this point, the book came out in '86, the first book, and it made a big splash here. Extremely popular book among the science and technology crowd here and around the US and outside the US. So we started getting things to happen, and there aren't many people in this room who realize how hard things were to get started back then, because there was no internet. Most people had no email address. Most people had no fax machine. You did things through the post.
Our newsletters were physical, right?
Can you imagine starting things through the postal mail? And yet that's what had to happen. And despite this challenge, we got things off the ground and started having conferences, which was another great way. If you have no internet, you have to have face-to-face conferences. So we started that series, and that worked very well. So eventually we started the Feynman Prize. Richard Feynman had come to our apartment in Cambridge back in the day, and we knew his son Carl. So even though Richard Feynman had passed away, we were able to negotiate with Carl and name our prize in honor of Richard Feynman. So as Allison explained, that's been a way that we've done for a long time now of identifying super important work that we feel is going to be critical to this field. So between the conferences and smaller workshops, the prizes, we have a Distinguished Student Award, another way that we try to bring young people forward. So yeah, that's how it was happening.
But it all just wasn't rosy, right? What if a few of the kind of like challenges?
It wasn't rosy. It was not rosy. It turns out that most of the world is not as open-minded as MIT Institute professors. I remember vividly in the early 80s, Eric went off to some high-level technical scientific conference, came back, reported that he had been in a group at lunch with a Nobel Prize-winning physicist whose name I don't recall, fortunately. And he and this Nobel Prize-winning physicist had gotten into a debate about whether it would ever be possible to manipulate individual atoms, have that level of control at the level of individual atoms. And this Nobel Prize-winning physics, Nobel Prize-winning person was saying this would never be possible. The laws of physics eliminate this possibility. And here's Eric, he's like in his mid-20s, no PhD, but this doesn't bother him. He's out there arguing. Fortunately, within a few years, this was actually demonstrated in a laboratory. So I hope whoever that was lived long enough to see that. But that was the kind of thing we were up against. There were challenges here too, mainly that the establishment, sort of the academic establishment, did not appreciate this young person, totally outsider, got a tremendous amount of media coverage for these ideas without playing the game, right? Not showing proper respect for senior scientists in the field, not coming up through academia, not paying the dues, all those things you're supposed to do. We weren't in that game. So the establishment was not pleased. Meanwhile, the media, although the initial book was mostly very positive, it did mention potential downsides. And of course, the media tends to overfocus on potential downsides. So there was all this media about the potential downsides, including a piece by Bill Joy in Wired. And then the establishment got upset. Richard Smalley, another Nobel Prize winner, started to object to all this. And it's important to keep in mind, this does not mean that Bill Joy or Richard Smalley were bad guys. They were not bad guys. They were just responding to the greater pressures. These were just part of the system. So at that point, I've always tried to be a scenario thinker, so I had never counted on a fast development of this. Some people did, I did not. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is going to take longer.
Yeah, and what would you say right now that should be done to actually like reinvigorate the space? Like, is there anything that you want to get your hand on?
Yeah, there's huge reasons why things are different now. First, as I mentioned, the information abilities, the coordination abilities now are 180 degrees different. Everything is much easier now. Second, the amount of money that is in visionary hands is just exploded since those days. And it's almost all from computation, software, the internet, et cetera. Now crypto, there's lots of very visionary crypto donations happening right now. So this has been a historic change never seen before in the history of humanity that I'm aware of, where so much money has been in the hand of relatively young people, very technical in their orientation. This is a huge opportunity. This is a great chance we have to make a huge difference now. This has never happened in the world before. And then finally, AI. AI is going to make a huge difference for this. So everything is different. The game's completely changed, and I think it's time to make a big push.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Are there any comments, questions?
Yeah, question. So when you started out, what would you have expected to be here by now, and what that is here would you have expected not to be here?
Well, as I said, I've always been a scenario planner. So rather than, and I tend to also think in terms of theory rather than dates. So it's like, okay, what is theoretically possible? And then the other thing that you have to ask is, well, what's been the funding level? It's all about the funding, right? I mean, with enough funding, we could do this pretty fast. And back when we were super young, we thought, well, look at the Apollo program, look at the Manhattan Project. Those were fast. Yes, they were fast. Those were wartime projects. The Manhattan Project was a hot war. The Apollo program was a Cold War project. Those were serious efforts because there was a military concern. If that happens again, we may suddenly find a great deal of money available for this. I hope that doesn't happen. I'd rather do it in a calmer, I'd rather do it in a peacetime fashion. But that's why those went so fast. In a way, we should be glad that we are not in a big rush, right? Because we aren't in that situation. But it's all about the funding. The funding situation is so, so different now and so much better than it ever has been before. I know the money's out there. We just have to go get it.
Comments, questions? Yes.
To invigorate the space and to gather up talents and everyone to join the research, what are some dream scenarios that could happen once we develop this really fine control with molecular machinery and assembly? Do you think you could elucidate some of them? For example, like maybe drug assembly.
Oh,
things
the
like
heck
that.
with drug discovery.
Okay.
We'll just go in there and fix the stuff. Just go in there. Like molecular surgery.
Oh, like not even drugs
Just
necessary, but actually
The
fixing
heck with drugs.
the-
Just send the machines in
okay,
there.
okay.
Kill all the cancer cells.
Oh.
Fix the DNA. Come on. Just
okay.
fix it.
I see,
We
like
can do
right
that.
there directly with all the little
Yes. Yes.
Machine.
Don't let stuff just float around. You control it. You just get in there and control it. Yeah. So yes, get rid of diseases. Get rid of aging. You want a vision. There's one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no,
That's
serious.
super
I'm
cool,
serious.
super
This is
cool.
not. No, this is serious stuff. It could be done.
Yeah.
It's it may be too late for me, but it will happen someday, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really big one. Aging. I think climate change. We can fix that for sure. That's not hard. That's not even rocket science. I mean, we can do that for sure. What else? I mean, go read Engines of Creation. It's all in there.
Okay. Climate change with the technology of molecular machinery.
Well, if you want to change what's in the atmosphere, this is not
Oh,
that
okay.
hard, right?
Gotcha.
You just got to pull stuff out that we don't want there. I mean, we probably don't even need molecular nanotechnology to do that. But if we had molecular nanotechnology, we certainly could do that, right? So those are two.
Fascinating.
But actually, the
yeah.
original book is still good. Yeah.
So
Let's
if
do
the
one
vision
more.
is so exciting, why is it so hard to get funding?
Well, let's see. In the past, we've been dealing with funders. Most funders were not technical at all, right? So you could present the vision to them, but they really had no way to judge, is this 10 years? Is it 50 years? Is it 100 years? And there was no scientific consensus. So super hard for them to judge, and who can blame them, right? They don't have the skill set to do it. Today, we're dealing with funders who have a science or technology background, usually in software, but at least they have the technical skills to sit down and really dig into this if they choose to do so. They can get into it. So, I mean, and let's face it, this is not easy. Those of you who are in the lab, this is not easy stuff. I mean, it's so much harder to work with atoms than with bits. It's
So
like a couple orders of magnitude at least.
Let's compare this vision to another molecular nanotechnology like CRISPR. There was no problems for this field to explode and get a lot of funding. As soon as Jennifer Doudna and Charpentier discovered this, they had a lot of funding. So do you think for the vision proposed in the book, this can happen?
What's the question?
Demonstration of the power of technology?
Well, Adam just explained that it's not even, the first chunk of work is not even going to give us a complex machine that's going to be able to do things. There's going to be multiple steps to even get to something interesting. This is a hard problem. I don't mean to under address that. And we really have some fantastic speakers. I have got to get off the stage.
Thank you so much, Christy. Thanks.